Okay, let's now look at an example of a composite function. Here are two functions f of g, and they have these over here on the left are the domains for the two functions, and here over here are the rules for the two functions. So every function has two parts. It has a domain and it has a rule. This question says, find the rule for the composite function f of g of x, and then find the domain for the composite function f of g of x. Alright, let's begin with the first part. Find the rule for f of g of x. That simply means f of g of x like that. Which just means f of x squared minus 1, since g of x is x squared minus 1. Which just means the square root of x squared minus 1 minus 8, or in other words, the square root of x squared minus 9. Okay, so we've done the rule. That's usually the easy bit. Now let's go on to find the domain of f of g. Alright, what we need to begin with when we're doing the domain is we need to begin with this. X is an element of the domain of g, and g of x is an element of the domain of f. Okay. Now the first step in finding the domain of f of g is to just substitute what we know into that. Okay. What is the domain of g? Well, if we look up here, the domain of g is 0 to infinity. What is g of x? Well, if we look back, g of x is x squared minus 1. And what is the domain of f? Well, the domain of f is up here. It's 8 to infinity. Okay, so in that first step, all we're doing is just substituting in. Okay, once you've substituted, you then have to simplify. Okay, now let's have a look at this right-hand side. X squared minus 1 is an element of 8 to infinity is actually the same as saying that x squared minus 1 is bigger than or equal to 8, isn't it? Ignore my little error there. Which is the same as saying x squared minus 9 is bigger than or equal to 0. Which is the same as saying x plus 3 x minus 3 is bigger than or equal to 0, which is the same as saying, if we put all of that on a number line, and this is going back to chapter 1, this is all the same as saying that x is an element of minus infinity to minus 3 union 3 to plus infinity. Okay, if that was a bit quick, have a look back at chapter 1, you should be able to see it. In other words, what we've got here is that x is an element of 0 to infinity, and x is an element of minus infinity to minus 3 union 3 to infinity. Alright, how do we simplify that? Well, what we do is we draw a number line for x. We represent each of those two sets on the number line. So 0 to infinity is that. Minus infinity to minus 3 is that line. 3 to plus infinity is that line. Now, if we want and, what that means is and is the same as overlap or intersection. So the intersection of these two sets is just what's on the right over here. Okay, so the intersection is x is an element of 3 to infinity. In other words, the domain of f of g is 3 to infinity. Okay, so there are really three parts to these questions. Firstly, state the formula that you do have to memorize. Substitute everything into it. You make these initial substitutions. Then simplify things. And once you've simplified, then you have to look at their overlap on the number line and give your answer. Okay, so that's how you find the rule and the domain for a composite function.